In the late 90s and early 2000s, South and East Asian horror had a pretty big moment, to be honest. It's often referred to as a boom period for that genre in those specific regions. It was such a boom, in fact, that the consequent remakes that came out of their biggest movies ended up being a crutch on which the genre globally sort of rested for almost a decade. And in this video, I'm going to be examining that front to back, both sides, so originals and remakes, and basically just walking you through what is one of my favorite periods in horror cinema. But before we get there, raid, shout out, I'm just kidding. My channel has like 70 subs. I don't think they'd sponsor me even if I wanted them to. So we begin this journey at the tail end of the 1980s. Studio execs had very recently discovered the concept of a sequel, and anything that caught fire was very quickly being weaponized. Before you knew it, franchises like Halloween, which basically led the charge for a whole new wave of horror, were 5 movies deep and struggling to justify their existence, let alone their runtime. This meant that by the 90s, studios were suffering from a really nasty case of sequelitis. The boom had passed and Daddy's wallet was staying shut. It was a tough time for the rampant visibility of horror, but while the titans were dormant, some absolute bangers quietly arrived and disrupted the entire landscape. Jacob's Ladder, Misery, The Silence of the Lambs.
What the f*** lotion in the basket?
And It all just kind of sauntered in under the radar, leading this fresh new wave of psychological horror. Then, taking the best bits of both worlds, Candyman mixed cerebral racial tension with just full tilt violence to create one of the most underrated horrors of that decade.
Tonight our congregation shall witness a new miracle.
Honestly, check out Candyman if you haven't seen it. It does hold up. And that whole like standing in front of a mirror and saying Candyman 3 times thing, like it really f***ed us up as kids, you know what I mean? It was our introduction to saying a name in front of a mirror 3 times and then waiting for something to appear. I know Bloody Mary had the market cornered on that shit for like a billion years beforehand, but somehow Candyman was our introduction to that. And, we would do it and then stand around and nothing would happen, but we would still be shitting our pants. Honestly, it's fun to think back of the things that like you got wrapped up in as a kid that meant like the world to you, but actually were just kind of stupid and meaningless, you know what I mean? Like to be that invested in something. And now I just feel nothing, I'm dead inside. I'm laughing, but that's because it's uncomfortably true. Sorry, that is the end of my existential crisis. We will continue this video now. So by the mid-90s, horror had taken a real swing in the opposite direction. We'd gone from full-on aggro-ass movies that held nothing back to movies that really slowed things down and worked on your tension and nerves. And these movies were critically lauded. I mean, Silence of the Lambs is one of the few movies of its kind to win an Academy Award. It was a cultural moment and made a lot of money, but it was an anomaly. Then in 1996, Scream arrived, and once again, the landscape of horror has shifted. The genre is now cooking on both fronts. Psychological/paranormal horror is standing alone on its own 2 feet at this point and making a healthy living off of what are largely just one-shot movies. They're not franchised or designed to be milked. These are just movies that exist mostly in isolation. But if we're studio execs, I mean, boy, do we miss a good milking. So when Scream drops and goes nuclear in 1996, it leads a slasher revival. See, the likes of Jacob's Ladder and Misery, they are fantastic, but they are your mum and dad's movies. The 18 to 25s aren't exactly losing their minds to see movies about grown-ass adults psychologically torturing each other. But a fun, vibrant slasher movie about teenage paranoia fronted by the most attractive people you'll find either side of the Canada-US border. Baby, we are printing money. We're going door to door at the studio just shouting "Money-fi" and just hurling bills at each other. I was 9 years old when this movie released, and my brother, who is 11 years older than me, I know it's a substantial gap, but my brother, he rented, I think, Scream on VHS videotape. And I think just having it in the house was the most exciting thing in the world to me. Like, just knowing that that tape was in the house. And I have to emphasize how strong the mono culture was back then. That a 9-year-old could understand the gravity and excitement around a horror movie that was made for young adults. And here's the thing, I snuck in 20 minutes of Scream when my brother was out the house. And of course it was the iconic opening scene with Drew Barrymore. And I did not sleep for like a month. But I couldn't tell anyone why. For weeks, everyone's confused as to why I never want to be in a room by myself. And I can't tell anyone because it'll put me in trouble. So my entire family are like full on ready to just send me to a child therapist when really the problem was that I didn't want to be gutted by like Ghostface in the middle of the night.
Listen, asshole!
No, you listen, you little bitch. You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish, understand?
Scream is actually my favorite horror franchise. Just to keep it short, I genuinely believe even the bad sequels to Scream have pretty good ideas. However, what I think and feel is irrelevant because much like its father before, the slasher revival reaches a point of saturation and thus diminishing returns. Within the space of 4 years, we've had 3 Scream movies, 2 I Know What You Did Last Summers, 2 Urban Legends, a Halloween revival, a Chucky movie, a Carrie sequel. Shit, even the most art house of art house directors, Gus Van Sant, made a shot-for-shot remake of Psycho, the original slasher movie, which in itself is like this fascinatingly weird thing to do, especially at the height of slasher saturation. So here we are, closing out back-to-back decades in the exact same way. And the funny thing is, much like Silence of the Lambs being a kind of nail in the coffin of the original run of slashers, a movie dropped in 1999 that bucked the slasher trend and once again shifted the landscape. And I have 4 words for you.
I see dead people.
The Sixth Sense remains, to this day, one of the highest grossing horror movies of all time. And let me put this in perspective, right? It released in the same year as both The Matrix and Toy Story 2 and outperformed both of them. It took a whole new Star Wars movie, the first in nearly 20 years, to keep it from being the top grossing movie of 1999. And by the way, 1999, no slouch. It is a year that is widely considered one of the best in the history of cinema. We not only had Matrix and Toy Story 2, but we had American Pie, Fight Club, Blair Witch Project, American Beauty. There's more, but we don't have time. And to be a standalone paranormal horror movie that makes that much of an impact among all of these legendary movies is just truly unfathomable. And listen, it's a great fucking movie. Now, should Shyamalan's colossal drop-off be studied by learned scientists? Maybe, yeah, maybe it should. But he got it really right that one time. That's mean. That's mean. I'm just messing. I actually really enjoy kind of how dumb his movies are. Listen, he still makes good movies from time to time. I think The Visit is an excellent horror movie. And I kind of wish he would just make more stuff like that.
Would you mind getting inside the oven to clean it?
Stop! Nana, stop!
Sorry, this is not a video about Shyamalan, although he does open a door with The Sixth Sense. Maybe it'd be more fitting to say he turns on a VCR. Hey, look, we made it. I'm finally talking about Asian horror. I told you would get it, didn't I? I mean, it only took 20 years. So a year before The Sixth Sense cleared house in the US, a movie called Ringu was setting records in its own country of Japan. Much like Sixth Sense, Ringu had a slow and considered manner of execution, but was arguably even more reliant on build and tension, as it was made on a quarter the budget and lacked the means to pay off frequent visual scares in a satisfying way. Instead, it put that budget towards a handful of iconic scenes, like, for instance, the cursed videotape, and of course the infamous well scene that closes out the movie. This restraint and focus on atmosphere over exposure became the hallmark that gave Asian horror its creepy, intangible feel. Where even the most considered American horror movies had that typically filmic quality to them, Asian horror was coming from a place of austerity, as the Japanese economy had been in decline in the years prior, so the budgets and technologies were scaled down. As a result, Ringu has the image quality of a high-budget local soap opera, but without the bleached-out lighting, so it creates this uncanny mix of washed midtones. Ringu's success ignited something of a golden age for J-horror, and following in its footsteps were iconic movies like Pulse, Dark Water, Audition, and the Ju-On series. Pulse and Dark Water are my two personal favorites. Pulse for reasons that about 100 YouTubers have already covered in way more detail than I possibly can. But in summary, something way ahead of its time, something modern technology is killing us. And Dark Water, I think, is just a gorgeous movie about the difficulties of single parenthood that also happens to be a quite effective horror movie. I mean, watch them both. They are both super movies. So you may recognize the name Roy Lee. He is an American movie producer who has been in the credits for basically every movie made in the past 20 years. I mean, shit, his IMDb lists him as a producer on 120 movies. And he's only been active for 23 years, meaning, let me just get my calculator, 120 divided by 23. He's produced 5 movies a year since 2022. Now, granted, I, to this day, have no idea what a producer does, but whatever it is, he seems to do a lot of it. And his whole journey, his legacy, begins with Ringu. By the turn of the 2000s, Lee had convinced the film's rights holders that it would be hard to sell a foreign language movie to an international market, but that he could work with them to create and distribute an English language remake. So Dreamworks bought the rights to Ringu for a pretty paltry $1 million, and then committed only $1.2 million to production of the remake before what I can only imagine is presumably seeing gold and then upscaling the budget of that to $40 million. Quite a big jump. The Ring was released in 2002, and after a slow opening weekend, it grew in popularity week on week, spreading virally like a certain videotape. So 1 second while I start up my hot take machine. Okay, so I think The Ring is great. I think it does a good job of translating that sort of hazy, washed midtone that I mentioned earlier exists within Ringu. And it's a very sort of algae? How the fuck do you say it? Algae, right?
Algae.
It's a very sort of algae-tinged movie where lots of greens and yellows are washed right through the entire thing. And I really appreciate that, the effect that has. I know there is an argument among the diehards, and trust me, I'm one of them, that The Ring cuts a lot that exists within Ringu and sort of almost reduces the plot down to a mood piece rather than a character study. And while I do sort of agree with that, I need to also say Ringu cuts a lot of shit as well. Like, I'm such a big fan of this series that I've read the books as well. And Ringu isn't beating the selective exclusion charges either. The book goes places that are pretty difficult to probe, sexually speaking. So, I think you just got to kind of enjoy each thing for what it is. The Ring's success dictated a change of direction for horror. Not only was the slasher revival 10 toes up by this point, but the juice was now in paranormal horror. And who did that brand of scary better than the place that brought us the long-haired ghost girl? So Roy Lee now had a proof of concept. He was weaponized with the success of The Ring, which meant that he could start buying up Asian horror rights en masse. Next up was The Grudge in 2004, which was based on Ju-on The Grudge and directed by the same guy who did the original, Takashi Shimizu. It stars Sarah Michelle Gellar, who was like the first woman I ever loved. 11-year-old me had a poster of Buffy on my wall. It's the exact same poster that you're seeing in the background of this video, and I spent a lot of time just sort of staring at it and willing it into existence. It is for that reason that my views on The Grudge are a little biased. I mean, I thought it was fine. Less than The Ring, but fine. In much the same way that like Ju-on was fine. Less than Ringu, but fine. It made a whopping $187 million at the box office, which was on a tiny budget of $10 million. So fine or not, it was another big return for our boy Roy. The Ring 2 was next after that, making $163 million at the box office on a $50 million budget, which, I mean, it means we're still making some fat wads. But the twister here is that the reception, both critically and audience side, is starting to sour just a little bit. I'll be the first to say that The Ring 2, not great. But here's the thing, Ringu 2, the original, also not great. So in a way, they sort of honored the source material just fine. Now here is where it starts to hurt, like mentally, physically, emotionally. Because next up to the plate is my special one, my favorite, Dark Water. And the saddest part of all of this is that I think Dark Water is a grossly misunderstood thing. Like it might be the most tragically misinterpreted movie that I've ever seen in my life. Much in the same way that the original is a story about a single mother that happens to just sort of be wrapped up in horror elements. This is a family drama about a struggling single mother that just happens to have horror bits bolted on. And in fact, those horror tropes and elements work to counteract the good stuff about this movie. Like if they'd just been stripped away, this would be a truly excellent movie. Even reviews at the time were like, and I'm paraphrasing here, they would be like, there's a good movie in there, but it's muddied by the shit horror parts. Like they all pretty much had that consensus.
No new messages. Oh, God. Hello?
Hello? Yes, Chef. Are they there?
No.
They're not there?
There's no message. There's water everywhere.
William, calm down.
I encourage everyone right now, not right now, finish this video first. After this video, seek out the Dark Water remake. The cast alone is incredible. I mean, you've got Jennifer Connelly as the lead protagonist. You've got John C. Reilly, Tim Roth, the late Pete Postlethwaite is stacked. I mean, if I do anything positive with this video that I'm making right now, I want to lead a Dark Water remake revival where we, as a people, re-examine the mistake that we made with this movie. And hey, calm down. I'm not saying this is a 10 out of 10. It's a 7, a 7.5 maybe at best. But it's such an interesting 7. It's not by any stretch the 5.6 that it has on IMDb or the 52 on Metacritic. I think you just need to give this movie a chance. Let's make a change, people. This is my platform. Not only was it maligned by critics, but it made $68 million on a $30 million budget, which seems good, but if you're familiar with this kind of shit, they normally say to double a reported budget and you'll get the true figure when you like account for marketing costs. So really, my little soldier, the apple of my eye, My Dark Water, it barely broke even. So sadly, I think Dark Water turned the tide on this Asian horror wave, pun mostly intended. And while that movie is precious and misunderstood and we should protect it at all costs, a movie arrived in the same year that truly epitomizes the gentrification of Asian horror. Pulse, known as Cairo in Japan, is a movie by Kiyoshi Kurosawa made in 2001. I touched on it earlier. It's been the subject of many video essays precisely because it's proven itself to be somewhat timeless. It's quite abstract and hard to spoil if you've never seen it, but regardless, I'll give you an outline. So, some people discover that the internet might be haunted and that it's encouraging people to end their own lives. So the protagonists seek to find and stop the perceived evil before it kills everyone. Now, surface layer, admittedly, that sounds kind of goofy, like the kind of thing that would drop on Shudder without much fanfare. But Pulse in execution is one of the most jarringly eerie movies that you will ever watch, and features like an all-timer of a scene, one that Spickama Movies, if I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly, committed a whole video to. So if you want to spoil it for yourself, I'm going to put a link in the description to that video. Pulse tells you it's a movie about ghosts on the internet, but what it shows you is the alienating, life-consuming way that the internet can become a person's entire world. When you watch Pulse, the pace of the editing, the lingering space in each scene, it's a voyeuristic void that you just disappear into. It's both hypnotic and disconnected. Amazingly, you can watch Pulse right now for free on Tubi. I would encourage everyone to do so because it is truly a one-of-one experience watching Pulse. So all that said, when Pulse gets the remake treatment in 2006, I mean, they surely respect the tone of the original, right? I mean, why remake such an abstract movie? They must really love it and want to honor it, right? Right? It's easy to point fingers at like directors and writers, but honestly, I think execs at the studio perhaps had just never seen Pulse. They probably just looked around at what was happening, saw that a bunch of Asian horror movies were popping off, and then said to an intern like, hey, look at what Japanese horrors have rights available, then buy whichever ones of those made the most domestically. Notably, Pulse is one of the few Asian horror remakes that is not produced by our boy Roy Lee. So while I remain unsure what his job is, it's clear that he is at the very least watching the source material and, understanding its application for international audiences. Putting aside the very sharp drop-off in quality of his remake output, I mean, I think everything beyond The Ring was like barely a 6.0, maybe like in the 5s a lot of the time. But he at least foundationally understands what movies are good to go sort of like out of the box. You take Ringu and Ju-on and Dark Water. These are all quite faithful renditions in translation, and they all feature these quite easily traceable plots that move from point to point in a quite digestible way. As the well began to run dry with J-horror, studios were looking to neighboring countries for bankable ideas. And thanks in no small part to Ringu's impact and reception, those neighbors were sort of charged up about funding and elevating horror projects of their own. Movies like The Eye from Hong Kong or Shutter from Thailand or A Tale of Two Sisters from South Korea, they all got a lot of buzz domestically, enough that they earned recognition internationally and ultimately would be remade by your boy Roy. Honestly, all of those remakes are kinda arse. And when I say arse, I mean ass. It's just I'm English. I'm sorry. But it's worth noting that they all turned a profit. Like, even still, nothing is bombing, but nothing is having much of an impact either. What I do want to do is circle back to the original versions of those remakes because they're all neat in their own way. I was a big stan for the Eye in the early 2000s. I think there is a unique visual energy to that movie that's in keeping with other Hong Kong cinema. One of my favorite directors is Hong Kong's own Wong Kar-wai, who made beautiful, gorgeous movies like In the Mood for Love and Fallen Angels. And you can see the DNA in the Eye that comes from that sort of lineage. It is frenetic and colorful, which makes it kind of uncanny for a horror movie. Shutter is a movie that I have less reverence for, but I think is just a really solid, effective horror movie. Any movie that's about cursed media, like images, videos, anything, that's day one for me. You sign me right up. Particularly if you're a fan of a video game series called Fatal Frame, I think you will find a lot to like about Shutter. Lastly, but honestly most importantly, was A Tale of Two Sisters, which had a significant and profound effect on me. Here in 2025, we're all sort of familiar with South Korea's dominance when it comes to entertainment. But back in the early 2000s, they were just another country that occasionally made something interesting just like everyone else. Do you know what I mean? However, this all started turning in 2002 and 2003 when, like back to back, you had Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, A Tale of Two Sisters, and the iconic Old Boy. A lot has been said about Park Chan-wook's Vengeance trilogy, so I don't need to litigate Old Boy's importance or, by extension, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. But it is A Tale of Two Sisters that really sort of created a template from which Korean cinema thrived. That effortlessly cool, ornate motif of like rich lighting and bold, silky colors and textures. Honestly, there are scenes in this movie that are so meticulously arranged that you would be forgiven for thinking that you were watching more of a Grand Budapest Hotel than you were like a Ringu. And the most impressive part of all of it is that those heightened visuals serve a function and support like the protag's view of the world. I'm saying all of this without even mentioning the acting, which honestly took me aback when I watched this for the first time. Horror movie acting can admittedly be a bit hammy at times. In fact, that was the case so often that back when I was watching all of these movies, the acting didn't really stand out to me. It was just normal for it to seem a little sort of like played up and forced. So when I watched A Tale of Two Sisters, I was like immediately struck by the excellence of the acting. It was like I suddenly had an epiphany that like, hey, you know what? People in horror can be exceptional actors.
말해봐.
뭘?
도대체 왜 그러는지. 네가 여기 내려서 했던 말들, 행동들 도대체 왜 그러는지 말 좀 해보란 말이야.
정말 몰라서 그러는 거야?
그게 뭔데? 그게 뭐냐고?
그 여자가 우리한테 앉은 말이야.
그러니까 그게 뭔지 말을 해보란 말이야.
수연을 자꾸 괴롭히잖아.
뭐?
못 알아들었어? 그 여자가 자꾸 수연을 괴롭히고 있단 말이야. 악랄하게도 악질적으로 매번 수연을 옷장 안에 가둬놓고.
Which is odd to say really, because even Ringu, which features an Emmy Award-winning actor in Hiroyuki Sanada, who's probably better known to people as Toranaga from Shogun, even Ringu is really quite hammy. For all of the things it sparked off and gave the world, I don't think acting is one of the things that we need to dwell on from that movie. My final note here is that A Tale of Two Sisters is on Tubi. Again, totally free. And I'm not sponsored by Tubi, by the way. Although if you're watching this, Tubi, you know, let's chat. I'm sure me and my 70 subscribers can do wonders for your brand. And that about wraps up this video. I appreciate you taking this journey with me. It truly is a trip down memory lane because these are all movies that I was obsessed with when I was at film school as a youngster. So it's nice to dip my toe back in and share these wonders with the world. So thank you. If you're not subscribed and you enjoyed this, please do, because I will try and make more videos, you know, here and there. I'm gonna try and make more, I promise. So please like and subscribe if you're down with this. And you know what? Take it easy, be safe. Watch those movies on Tubi. I'm not sponsored, I swear.